And we're live, guys. Thanks for tuning in to make this a pretty quick one, but we'll talk about the 4 games we've just seen of finals footy. Just give me the first couple of minutes to set this up. I'll get my graphics going and share it into the Tripod Punters Tips forum. Please let me know if you can hear me and see me, and let us know what your standout moment of the weekend was in the footy. Even talk some little NFL season kicked off on Friday, and we've got week 1 slate tomorrow, and I can see Barney commenting there. We've got a couple of NFL pods that are on the Tripod Facebook page if people are interested in that. Cheers, boys. Give her a friendly old share. Bloody mixed matchup. Tough one, boys. Right, I think that's all good. Knock that off. Yeah, South's Penrith. We got a few games that were closer than people expected for sure. Oh, Dane's giving a shout out to the Wallabies. For anyone who's just a general sports fan, it's must be All Blacks Argentina on anytime now, and then Wallabies South Africa tonight if you're that way inclined, or if you're having a punt. We did have a sweep, which is always good. G'day, Adrian. Jack's happy about the Rabbitohs. Welcome to the Tripod, where we break down the NRL every game, every week from a punting perspective. I'm Jacob Wynn. This is the live finals week 1 recap. We did win our 2 best bets, 2-0. But I'm sure you guys are aware, because it just got decided in the final 2 minutes of the final game of the round. We lost the mixed matchup on that penalty try decision. What did the Eels end up on? 28 points. And we needed them under the Roosters score, and the Roosters got 25 on the board, which I felt was a couple under par yesterday, but it was probably enough going into those final couple of minutes with the Eels with their noses in front, and we get a contentious call that takes away what would have been a sweep of a round for us with winning the best bets as well as the mixed matchup. So that's a harsh one. It'd be naive of me to say that we haven't had luck in the mixed matchups. You can't win. We're still 18-9 through the year. So we've won twice as many as we've lost with underdog odds every week. So I'm sure we've had some luck go our way towards the finishes, but you always remember those tough losses more than you remember the lucky wins, unfortunately. That really does sting a little bit, but we'll get to that when we talk about Eels Knights, because really let's just jump into all the games. So let's begin Friday night. I actually went out to this one at Sunny Coast Stadium where the Storm beat the Seagulls 40-12. This was a game where I reckon if you ask some people, they probably thought this had the potential to be the closest of the round, or if there was one team a lot of people liked for an upset, it was actually going to be the Seagulls. And of course, as we know, this was by far the biggest mismatch of the round. This was the only game that wasn't close. And that was good for us. Our best bet was Storm -3.5 in the first half. They ended up being up 18 at halftime. We never really too worried about that one in the course of the game. And I gave a bonus pick, Storm halftime full-time. I talked about I'd take the -8. In the end, Munster played and the line closed for the game -8.5. And it may have looked like value to some people. And I know this game was far from kind of going the way that Manly needed. Manly, a few things went against Manly, which certainly didn't help their cause. But overall, the fact is, Manly's been playing some really exciting footy in the last few weeks, and the Storm has been just kind of limping or slowing down a little bit, maybe dipping in form. And I think some people incorrectly thought that the Seagulls are on the Storm's level or maybe even above them at this point in time. But I think you've seen that when the game mattered, and with the Storm with a few fresh bodies, because not everybody played last week, whereas Seagulls did have to play everybody last week, that this Storm side is ruthless, this Storm side is absolutely elite, and they were just too good for the Seagulls. On that note, if you look at these games, if we just take one more broader look, and I talked last week about how I believe if you have the choice, you should rest players. Now, this doesn't definitively prove it, but if you had just bet the team that rested more players in round 25 on the line, you went 4-0. Because the Storm rested half their guys last week, they clearly covered the line. I guess I'm wrong. I guess the Roosters got the win. The Roosters had rested a couple of guys, but obviously the Titans did cover the line, had to play everybody. Rabbitohs did benefit from the rest, though. They rested basically everybody, whereas the Panthers played. Did that play into the fact that the Rabbitohs were fresher in causing the upset of the round? And then the Eels as well. And this is an interesting one because the line was right around 8. And when I did the pod, you could get +8 on the Knights, but the prevailing line was 7.5. And that late converted try, penalty try, also decides the point spread there. And that's an Eels team that rested everybody last week and a Knights team that did rest a few forwards. But, at the end of the day, we questioned why did they play everyone against Brisbane. So that's a broader point. It doesn't really prove anything, though, but it's just interesting to note that the fresher teams did actually, in general, perform a little bit better. Moving back to the Storm Seagulls game, nightmare start for the Seagulls. They spill the ball 3 or 4 minutes in. The Storm pick it up. Lumi takes it back 40 metres and scores. Storm are in front. Then there's a Munster one-on-one strip on the Seagulls goal line. He appears like he might have lost it. Storm challenges the call correctly, gets the ball back and scores a try. That again was a bit iffy, like Kenny Bromwich kind of rolling onto the try line, gets given a try, 10-0. And then it's just, the Storm just got on a roll. It's 16-0 before the Seagulls really got any chance to attack. So at 16-0, it's almost game over. Now, Manly did strike back. It was 18-6. They were on the attack. Storm had to defend their line a couple of times. There's a crucial drop from Turbo at midfield. He had some uncharacteristic errors in this game. I want to talk a little bit about how I saw the way the Storm defending Turbo. And then I think Moses Sully spills the ball just before the end of the half, getting turned under by Turbo. And again, the Storm pick it up, go down to the Seagulls goal line. Pappenhausen scores right before halftime, 24-6. That's game over, basically. In terms of Turbo, there's obviously a lot of talk about how he is the best player in the world and how he's just like looking like a man against boys out there. But one point I did want to make was, if you think about all these games where Turbo's had 250 metres and 8 tackle breaks and 3 line break assists and 5 line breaks and all the rest, he has mostly done it against mediocre to bad teams. You can't really give me an example this year where he's really single-handedly won Manly a game against a gun team. And that's the point, is like, I'm not here to take anything away from Tom Trbojevic because I would be the first one to agree that he is the best player in the world. And funnily enough, last year I put a poll in the group and said, with so many gun fullbacks in the competition, who would you say will be the best fullback in the NRL in 3 years' time? And there's 50 comments, and only one person said Tom Trbojevic, and that was me. Nobody else said Tom Trbojevic in 3 years would be the best fullback in the comp. So I feel like, if anything, people have maybe slept on how good he is, maybe because of the injuries. But the broader point is, one player in rugby league, when there's 13 on the field, there's only so much they can do, especially against an elite side. Just felt like the Storm always numbered up against him. Whichever side of the field, whichever side of the ruck he was on, the Storm had an extra man there. So there never really was in space inviting Tommy to attack. And then on top of that, the Manly didn't win the forward battle. So they weren't generating a lot of momentum in the rucks. There weren't a lot of quick play the balls for him to kind of hunt and go in and get the ball and punch holes in the middle. So that was great game plan by the Storm, and also started by winning the forward battle. The Storm, people forget maybe, has an absolutely elite international level forward pack. And that was the tale of how this one went. The 2 players that really stood out with all the talk of Turbo was Pappenhausen and Munster. Remember, Munster was in doubt to even play, but he was classy as, and Pappenhausen's really getting back into early season form. So the Storm gets 14 days off now. Addo Carr should be back in this team. Brandon Smith should be fine. He had that facial hit scare, but they said it's not a fracture. Manly's hopes are not over, especially after what happened yesterday. So is a Storm Manly, could that be the grand final? It could be. I really believe, like, if the favourites win next week and Manly had to play someone like South Sydney in a prelim, you'd obviously give them a chance. So Manly's hopes, I think, have been dealt really good hand by being able to make a grand final without potentially having to beat a Melbourne or a Penrith. That's pretty fortuitous. You would have had to think that the pathway to the grand final was through those teams. And on that note, I should also say my Quinella bet, that's not going to win now. That can't win, unfortunately. Always felt like that Quinella for a Storm Panthers rematch would come down to a 2v3 Rabbitohs Panthers game. in the first week of the finals, and we had a double-digit favourite. But as we get to that game, the Panthers were upset, and it unfortunately shoved them onto the same side of the draw as the Storm. And on a positive note, or on a negative note, we don't get the Dream Grand Final. I was really looking forward to that rematch. I thought two teams that have been so dominant for the last couple of years, and Storm even further back. But what we may get is a couple of cracking prelims. So that's the positive. I think that's everything I had to say on the Storm Seagulls game. So let's move. So we won our best bet there. Then we moved to Saturday, where the Roosters beat the Titans 25-24. So a nail-biter that we weren't expecting. I wasn't really expecting this because I didn't really see a pathway for the Titans to beat the Roosters. I mean, the Roosters do miss Joey Manu a lot. It just, I mean, always their attack is always through Teddy and Victor Radley, who both had great games, but they just maybe one less dimension in attack without Joey Manu. And then the decision to keep Sam Walker on the bench. So played it a little bit safer with Lamb and Hutchison in the halves. I thought the Roosters, they were never behind in this game, and they always felt as though they were in control. And I mean, early in the game, they didn't really capitalise when Peachy got sent to the sin bin, and it's kind of ironic now because it was a very similar moment. The Peachy taking out Victor Radley when he was going to ground a kick through the line, it just gets called penalty, and then the exact kind of play happens in the Eels game, which was the other side of the mixed matchup, and they give them 6 points. Yep, happy to give it to them. So that didn't go our way in this game. And that was kind of telling that there were lots of moments where the Roosters probably could have been more clinical and got further in front, but the Titans just hung around. 12-0, the Roosters were leading late in the first half, dropped the ball, Titans get a chance to attack, final play of the half, Grubber in behind, Ikuvalu misjudges the bounce, and I think Fermor grounds it, and the Titans get it in at 12-6 at halftime. And again, that was just an example of did the Titans really deserve to be hanging in the game? They just happened to kind of get a try with a bit of a touch of luck that kind of hung them in there. But I always feel like if you put the effort in, it always allows you a chance to be in these games. So you certainly have to give credit to the Titans for fighting hard. Come out second half, Titans get another try off a drop bomb, kind of lucky. And then even late in the game when the Roosters were up 24-18, Ikuvalu spills it, running the ball back off his own goal line straight into the lap of Jared Wallace, who just has to catch it and run 5 meters forward and ground the ball, and it's 24-all. And again, pretty lucky try. And the Roosters just had not been able to put the Titans to bed. And all of a sudden, it's 24-all. And I think the Roosters might have missed a field goal, but then Peachy had a field goal shot in front, which was very close, doesn't get it. Sam Walker comes on for the last 7 minutes, ices a field goal with 5 to go. So the Roosters got their nose in front. And then how about that final play, or that final 30 seconds of the game, where the Roosters are on their own goal. Sorry, the Titans are on their own goal line. They're down 1. They have to get up the other end of the field. That looks like it's going to be impossible. We're inside the final minute. They shift the ball left, and it's Sam Walker, who has a terrible read, a couple of really bad moments, rushes out of the line, gets beaten on the outside, tries to recover back out, gets palmed, and gets bowled over. Again, Fermor makes a break. He's a really fast back rower. He's into open space. He's got a winger, Sammy, outside him, and they've just got Teddy to beat. And it's actually a really underrated, really experienced play by Teddy to not commit there. And he just hung back and tried to and not allow himself to get taken out of the play just enough for Sam Walker to recover and make a try-saving tackle on Sammy. And then I'm sure you all saw the replay that when the Titans shifted the ball to the right, beautiful ball from Kelly out to Fogarty that just allows him to dish it off to Herbert. And he had multiple options, one of which being just pass to the man that makes $1.3 million a season, who's unstoppable by a defensive line that's moving backwards. He didn't choose that one. The other one would be pass to your winger that's unmarked outside you. And the Titans win the game if they do. But as we know, they didn't. And that's brutal. And for your whole season to come down to one moment, I felt bad for the Titans. Several people in the comments said there's no reason to feel bad for the Titans. They only won 10 games this year. But they did pour it all out there on Saturday, even though I feel like, as I said, a few of the Titans' tries had a bit more element of luck to them, so the Roosters probably deserving. Other takeaways from this game, Takiaho got a knee injury. It's unclear how serious that is, but I think he only played a couple of minutes in this game, so that's really worrying. And Verrills is looking at a 1 to 2 week suspension for a high shot, so this Roosters side didn't need to lose any more players, but it looks like they will. and they'll have to play Manly next weekend. Now we move to probably the most interesting result of all. Panthers, Rabbitohs, and the Rabbitohs won 16-10. We didn't have a best bet on this game. So we didn't have anything riding other than the Quinella, which obviously if Panthers had won, we'd be really strong favourites with Panthers and Storm. I would have predicted that if Penrith and Melbourne had both gotten through to the prelims, they'd probably both be double-digit favourites no matter who they played. It's not going to be the case, of course, because Rabbitohs pulled one of the big upsets. And the game actually started well for Penrith. They got the opening try, and it was a pretty crazy try. I mean, Cleary putting in this type of, I don't know if you call it like a banana grubber kick, very deliberate, where he's done it before and he's picked the post out. But this one driving into the in goal looks like it's going to go dead, but it just like kind of turns at a right angle. And the Panthers keep the ball in, bat it back in, and get the opening try through Crichton. And I'm kind of thinking, geez, if the Rabbitohs are any chance in this type of game, they can't really be dealt some unlucky moments like that. And for the Panthers to score like that, you're thinking, geez, it's going to be a tough night. But to Rabbitohs' absolute credit, I really think the story of this game and how the Rabbitohs pulled this upset was their defense. You know, you go back to the fact that these two teams met in Dubbo in about round 9, round 8, something like that, and the Panthers put 50 plus on the Rabbitohs that night, and then within a fortnight of that was a Storm drubbing where the Storm put 50 on the Rabbitohs, and a lot of people wrote South Sydney off. And I was telling people even back then, like, Rabbitohs have got a lot more gears to get through and still can be a really, really dangerous side. But I must admit, when they lost Latrell Mitchell, I just felt that dropped their ceiling to the point that I couldn't see the Rabbitohs scoring enough points to beat these top sides. And in the end, 16 points, that's maybe how many you would have expected out of the Rabbitohs. You just wouldn't have thought 16 points would be a winning total. And that's why I say the defense was the story of the game. The defense was sensational. That lucky try I talked about by the Panthers 10 minutes in, or whatever it was, that's the only try they scored. The only other points the Panthers added to the scoreboard was penalty goals, including one right on the stroke of half-time, made it 10-all. Look, at that point in time, it looked like anybody's game. But you come out second half, one thing that's been a hallmark of the Panthers when they dominate is their yardage carries and Brian To'o. And I really felt like, I don't know what you guys thought, if he wasn't as explosive as usual, he didn't have that kind of pop in his runs, but it really looked like the Souths made a concerted effort to get numbers in the tackle, and To'o was getting monstered, and To'o was getting thrown back nearly every time he carried the ball. I'm just not used to seeing that. And even after all that being said, it's a one-try game. Penrith had their chances late in the game. I can think of 3 different end of sets that just failed for Penrith. One where they rolled all the way up the field. Cleary puts a bomb up, drops it right on the goal line. Chance for Crichton to contest. He gets his contest a bit wrong, takes Tough out in the air, and you've gone from having Rabbitohs under immense pressure to a massive piggyback. Now they get the penalty, get out of their territory. Another one where they went for the early chip over the top. Staines is in a bit of space, gets a shocking bounce. It ends up in Mark Nichols' lap of all people. And another time where Penrith made a break down the left side and thought it was on and kicked early, but Souths covered it up. So, look, Penrith on a different day maybe takes those chances, but I'll absolutely say deserved win by the Rabbitohs. At the other end of the field, the Rabbitohs had some moments late in that game where they could have killed Penrith and they did not quite execute themselves, which allowed Penrith to hang in the game. So, there's been a lot of criticism for a guy like Cody Walker that he doesn't show up in the big games. Rabbitohs have lost the last 3 preliminary finals. I think Cody Walker has lost last 1 or 2 times he's played Origin. So, he gets that kind of criticism. He didn't have the best game, Cody Walker, when Penrith and Souths played like 3 weeks ago. But you look in this one, if anyone, the player that was quiet was Jerome Luai. Didn't really make his stamp on the game. So now the Panthers have got to go the long way around. I still think it's possible. It wouldn't shock me. I think if you recall, if you cast your mind back to 2015, the Broncos beat the Cowboys in week 1 of the finals, but then the Cowboys got a pretty easy week 2 win where they thrashed the Sharks, and then they came back and beat Melbourne in the prelim. And, that's what Penrith has to do now. They have to take care of business next week against Para, and then they're going to throw the kitchen sink at the Storm. Clearly, the Storm will be the favourites. Clearly, the Storm will have a lot of advantages by virtue of the week off. But all I'm saying is I don't write off Penrith because they lost yesterday. It's way tougher, but it's not impossible where we have seen it done before. Whereas the Rabbitohs, now they get themselves, into a prelim and they get to sit and wait and see who comes to take them on. So that's a sensational coaching job by Wayne, who Matty Blanche says is now Ivan's legal guardian. So huge result by Rabbitohs, even without Latrell. If they can defend like that, they can keep themselves in games. And I think that was the most surprising element of this match. Finally, the Eels beat the Knights 28-20, and we did win our best bet. I mean, it's a 2-point game very late, so the best bet was either team 1-12. So in that sense, it was fairly safe, although at one stage, Parramatta did score 4 straight tries in this game and lead by 12, and I was definitely concerned that the Knights could give in and Parramatta could roll over the top. So a bit of a Knights comeback helped us win the best bet. And to be honest, that Knights comeback probably should have won us the mixed matchup as well. Eels only had 22 points with a couple to go, but it wasn't to be. Now, an interesting wrinkle, I literally had my best bet screenshot, typed up, ready to go, and it was going to be Knights +8, which was $2 on Ladbrokes. And then as I was kind of refining my key points, because I share my breakdown in the pod, but then the first 5 minutes, I try and just share like my 60 seconds condensed version. And what I kept coming back to was, I think this game will be tight. And then I said to myself, well, hang on, if what I really think is this game is going to be a tight one, I should look and see if I can get either 1-12, because that's obviously even better than +8 on the Knights. Even though my handicap was that I thought the Knights would keep it closer than the line suggests, I didn't really see the Knights rolling Parramatta either. So I changed that one late, and sometimes you really regret doing that. And if the Knights had gotten up big and gone on with it, then I'd be kicking myself. But luckily that it would have been a push, and instead it's a win. So that's handy, because in the end, they did. That penalty try actually cost, I'm sure that would have cost some people money on the line, because the line was more so 7.5 by game time today. But even if you go back to Wednesday, there even was an 8.5 available on Unibet as well. So that just goes to show every key, half point can really matter. This was a pretty interesting game. The kickoff from Gutho out on the full. Knights scored very first set. Knights kind of in control, although it was an arm wrestle, leading 10-6 with a few minutes to go in the first half. And then it just all changed. Fairly innocuous to me. Mitchell Moses catches the ball first receiver out wide to the right of the post and just beats, I think, maybe a lazy Clemmer in the defensive line. And even Ponga was on his heels at fullback. And Mitchell Moses scores a 45-metre try that breaks the game open. But even then, Eels are only up 2. Knights just have to kind of hold firm with 2 or 3 minutes to go in the half. They can't do it. They let the Eels roll all the way up the field and score in the corner again. So that's what really hurt them, is allowing that back-to-back tries. All of a sudden, the Knights went from up 4 to down 6 at halftime, and that put us in a bit more of a precarious position in our mixed matchup, where we had the Eels on 6 points in like the 36th minute, and suddenly they're on 16 at halftime. Second half, Eels scored first, and what I really noticed was Mitchell Moses had a spring in his step. When you score a solo try like he did and beat your chest, now he was really feeling himself, and he threw a gem of a rainbow ball to Fergo, similar type of try that they also executed against the Storm. And that's the moment in the game I was talking about, where now it's 22-10 to the Eels, and it's looking like the score could definitely get away from them. And the biggest issue, the biggest reason that Parramatta got themselves out in front and scored these 4 straight tries was just missed tackles. Like, no excuses for the Knights. They completed pretty well, especially in the first half. I think they only had 1 error. But they just were missing tackles that you just shouldn't be missing in a finals game. So again, I think the deserving side got the win. There was another really key moment in this game, though. First of all, a grubber in behind, Tuala grounds it. I thought quite contentious. I don't know what you guys reckon. I thought to the letter of the law, even though I was cheering for the Knights, I felt like Tuala got his hands on the ball, was bringing it down, and then lost control. And they always talk about how you have to re-grip. I don't know if he did re-grip it. They gave it a try. They didn't even do the full stop the game and check and review it. They just pressed the green light, try confirm. So that cut the game to 6. And then with 15, 20 minutes to go, the Knights were taking it off their line. Saifidi drops it cold. He was about to get smashed by Niokoro, but drops it cold. And the Knights look like drop their heads, and the Eels are about to pack a scrum. And in the stoppage, The bunker reviews it and says the previous play was a shoulder charge by Paulo, flips the call, penalty Knights, they go on the attack, Ponga throws a sublime double cutout, and the Knights are within 2. So that moment there was massive. It brought the Knights right back into the game, but unfortunately, you know how it ends. Grubber in behind, and they've called penalty try when a man, clearly does get impeded. But I just feel like when the ball is bouncing, how do you know for sure that a guy's going to pick it up? So that's what really hurts, for them to just say, yeah, he was definitely going to score, and it's a penalty try. And on top of that, if you saw the replay, it was the Gutherson grubber. And I don't even think Gutherson's foot hit the ball before the ball hit the ground. I actually think Gutho dropped that. So it's like double whammy. And unfortunately, that cost us the mixed matchup. At least it didn't cost us the best bet. So mixed emotions, and I definitely didn't get everything right this weekend. And, and my preference is I want to get every game right. But it's somewhat refreshing if I don't think a game's going to be that close. Like on Saturday, I didn't really know if we were going to get a close game of footy. And then we got back-to-back nail-biters. So it is nice sometimes, and that's why it's not easy to win every tip, and that's why we watch these games, because they're not played on paper. Sometimes you get surprising results, and it's kind of good because I didn't want a final series that was going to be too predictable. So there's a cat being thrown amongst the pigeons now for sure, but at least we've kind of backed up a winning round on best bets last week with a couple more winning best bets this week. Thanks everyone who tuned in. If you are an NFL fan, it's all on tomorrow for young and old, 4 a.m. maybe, depending on where you live, with about 14 or 15 NFL games on tomorrow. And we've had a pod yesterday called Prop Me Up, which had about 20 bets if you like the NFL, mostly prop bets from Maddie the Undertaker, and then Neddy Given Sunday today with his NFL preview, which I haven't even watched yet. He dropped that at 4:30, so I'll be watching that tonight. Neddy brings the game to life like nobody else. Bailey says, give me your best bet for NFL. Mate, your best bet is to check out those 2 shows. I'm going to take a little step back from tipping the NFL. I'm going to back these guys in who are going to be fresh, hungry, they're talented, and they're going to be giving it a red-hot shot and giving you heaps of quality NFL content and doing their best for the picks. So check those out, guys. There'll also be a tipping thread with a summary of those boys' best plays that's in the Tripod group as well. If you're interested, that's if you're into NFL. But, of course, I'm still completely focused on NRL, so I'll be back to look at the 2 games we've got next week and the elimination final round. And I'll see you on Wednesday, 5:45 on YouTube to preview those games. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Lego.